Yeah, yeah, I think it looks great.
Who are you talking to? Houston.
Yeah. Oh, neat. Good. That's good historical documentation. Oh, okay, I better go for my other meeting, but remind Catherine that I need the some artwork for that ad probably within the next week. Good. It's just a lot smaller than a poster size for me. Okay, I'll see you tonight, if not before. Okay, bye. Jody?
Good morning, Houston.
Sorry, I was chattering away. I had Kathy Duchesne on the line.
Well, it's hard not to chatter when you've got Kathy on the line. I
Yeah.
spoke with her yesterday.
You look well, Jody.
Shoot. I left my notebook at home. I have everything else except my notebook. Oh, well.
Oh, so Jody, I sicked Peggy on finding out when Beelzer was in a play.
Oh yeah, good.
And
good thinking.
It was the Guacamole Queens.
Ah, okay.
And
I knew she'd been on something. Hi, good morning, Rico. March 2nd, that's old. And how did Peggy research that? Did she just talk to people or?
Well, she looked in the newspaper. We constantly are pouring through that paper as a diary. So I said I thought it was after 2018, and it turned out I think it was 2015.
Ah.
And Peggy played with her.
There you go. What you doing, doggy? Do what? What are you looking at me for? March, April, what is this? May. Oh, that's incorrect. Okay. She's just a good dog. Oh, she's just such a good doggy. Hey, poor.
Uh,
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Jody. Good morning, Grant. How are you guys today?
Video and
Good.
audio. Yay. Good job.
Good to see you, Bill.
Yes. How you been, Grant?
Really good. And you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Now tell me where you are.
I'm over in Monte Vista.
Oh,
Yeah, about 4 miles out of town. We're on some acreage out here and kind of like it a little bit, so we're pretty happy right now.
Bernadette doing well?
Yes, she is. Thanks for asking. Yep. Yeah, she's working hard like she always does. Can't keep her idle. So anyway,
Well, I miss you guys, Bill.
yeah. And you've been staying busy?
Oh yeah, no end of news.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
Hey. Oh, thanks. Yeah, we haven't started yet.
Good morning.
Hello, Danny.
Good morning, Grant. How's everything doing?
Good here.
Are we the only ones here so far?
Um, Bill Hagendorf was here.
Oh, yeah.
And Jody.
Yeah, Bill's going to join us with the fire department.
Hey, Denny, thanks for inviting me to do this. I wanted to ask you a quick question. Do you live up on Water Street?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I know where your house is at then. I've met you before. I
Yes.
apologize.
No, that's okay. Yeah, we live at the top of the hill with that sign that says bent tree.
That's what I thought. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we finally got everything going here. We're gonna try and rush this thing through for you so you can get it going before the tourists get here. We'll see
Oh,
what happens here.
It'll be what it'll be, but thank you so much.
Deborah, do you have audio?
Do I have audio? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to, I was just looking at this going, what am I doing wrong? But it's working now?
Yeah, no, that was me. I forgot I was muted.
Good.
So is everybody here that we need?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of us. And Bill.
and Bill Hagendorf is here, okay. Okay, it's 8:01, then let's open the meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission, Lake City. And let's have a roll call.
Houston,
Here.
Brannon,
Here,
Lindsay here, Goodman,
Present?
Fox,
Here,
guest Bill Hagendorf.
yes, Bill, okay. First order of business is to Approved minutes. We have minutes from the last two meetings. March and April. We'll take the March one first. Are there any comments, corrections, anything associated with the minutes from the, let's see when it was, March 2nd, regular meeting?
Looks fine to me, Joe.
Well, if not, then we need a motion to approve in a second. Excuse me, in a
I'd
second.
make the motion to accept the minutes from the March 2nd meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our March 2nd regular meeting. Let's have a roll call vote.
Houston,
Yes,
Brannon,
Yes.
Lindsay, yes, Goodman,
Yes,
Fox,
Yes. Okay, second, we have minutes from our regular meeting on April 6th. Are there any comments, corrections, anything to say about the minutes we have here for that meeting? Well, if not, again, then we need a motion to approve in a second.
I move to approve these minutes.
I'd second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 6th meeting and a second. So we'll take a roll call vote on that one.
Houston,
Yes,
Brannon,
Yes.
Lindsay, yes, Goodman,
Yes,
Fox.
Yes,
Okay,
okay,
Excuse me.
public presentations, we don't have anything specific except that we will ask our guests to say a little thing about the fire department's request, but we'll do that at the time we take up the action item. Are there any additions to the agenda that anyone would like to place for us to take up at this meeting that's not on the agenda now? Okay, then we pass by that. We have 4 COA applications to deal with today. Since Bill Hagendorf is here, we'll skip down to the third one, COA 2021-07, the fire department property on Henson Street. They are requesting new fencing there. And the issue associated with that is the fact that they would like 6-foot fencing all the way around it. Okay, I hope everybody got a copy of the letter that Bill sent to the mayor and the town trustees. I believe it was all yesterday, yeah. And the note then that I sent to the town referring to that letter. And well, I suggested what we might be doing today, but I first want to hear from other members of the commission as to the issues associated with the fence request here. We do not have a evaluation recommendation on this because of the issues associated with the variance request and so on. But the first thing I'm going to do is just ask Bill to outline what this request is.
Thank you for your time. Hope everybody can hear me okay. What it is I think everyone's familiar. We have the 7 additional lots next to the firehouse to the south side. And We've got fencing on the back alley that's approximately 6 foot high, and then we have fencing on the south side towards the walk bridge that's about 6 foot high, and then it tapers down to the 40 inches in the front on that side. What we're wanting to do is use that those 7 lots. We typically use it as a training facility area, outdoor training area. And what we want to do is put our live burn trailer there on there so that we can do our live burn training for our firefighters. We'll do vehicle extrication. We chop cars apart. We'll do some other training over there. But it's become kind of a safety issue. Our trailer has ladders, accessibility to the top of it. And we've already had incidents where we had young children over there on top of our trailer. So we want to secure this and keep it from, access to the general public. And then, of course, we have to follow the standards of NFPA. And as I outlined in that letter, for us to have a training facility like that, we have to keep it secure and, restrict access to unauthorized personnel. So, when we do chop up cars and stuff over there too, if we cut a car up, it may take us, 2 weeks to a month to get those things hauled off to scrap yards. And so you've got, shards of glass, sharp metal, everything else. And so we really want to keep this, we can keep it locked up, but we really need space in there too and access. That's why on the, would be the north side, which wouldn't be on the Henson side, but, actually in our property, we want to put 2 12-foot gates in there because we have to set up scenarios where we can actually run our apparatus into that area, just like we're responding to a house fire, a car fire, or vehicle accident. So the intent is to continue the fence kind of as is, the same type of structure. It would be wood slats that would be seen from the outside. It would have 2x4 stringers on the inside that the slats would nail or screw to. The only difference we would do on the new sections is we're going to put 2 7/8 pipe up there instead of wood posts because we've had incidents where the wood posts have rotted, been busted off, what have you. So we just want to make something that's a little bit more permanent. But from the street view, you would not see the posts at all. They would be completely hidden from the inside, from the pickets covering that. So I hope that answers your questions. If you have any questions, please ask.
So the view of the fence would just be looking at wood material, is that right?
Yes, what you would see would be the pickets on the outside, be basically a dog-eared picket likes on the alley side fence and what have you. And it would be all wood construction except for the post itself would be steel, and they wouldn't be a galvanized steel that kind of stands out. We're going to use, like I say, it's a 2 7/8 oil fill pipe basically, and it would be rusted already, have a light coat of rust on it, so it would kind of blend in with the fence color. Like I say, we found that the wood posts have become a maintenance issue for us, and we want to kind of eliminate that. So
I don't think your current request does, I'll have to look here for sure, but does your current request include putting up new fence along part of that south part of the property where the low fence is next to the neighbor?
it did not, Joe, and and that was my bad. I'd looked at that fence for years and just really never recognized that a portion of that fence on that south side goes from that 5.5 6 foot and tapers down to that 40 inches, and
Right.
so we would need to raise that section of fencing over there to accommodate that height, consistently around this training facility. But no, I did not address that, and I apologize. I did not see that. And actually Denny was there and brought that to my attention, and I was there over the weekend and saw that too myself. So.
Okay, because whatever we do here probably needs to indicate that that's now included also. The other question that I have, and then I'll open it, I'll let others come in with questions, but our guidelines can allow us to approve 6-foot high fence 30 feet back from the front of the property. Would that be acceptable to you at all?
Well, what happens, Joe, is it gets us down restricted in space. That trailer that we have is over 30 feet long, not counting the gooseneck on it. And then it takes a pretty substantial vehicle to move that if we have to. And then, of course, our apparatus are over 30 feet long. And I'm afraid that if we shorten that front line, squeeze it in 30 feet, that it's just going to limit us on space, that we're not going to be able to basically have 360-degree access around that with our apparatus and equipment. So we really do need that 30 feet if all possible.
Okay, well, then you're going to ask for the 30 feet. Okay. Are there any comments or other points from other folks on the commission here?
Well, as Bill and I spoke, the main issue here is safety for the city. We're not only trying to keep people out, we're trying to keep the city from being sued, from people getting in there and getting injured. And because of that, and because of the date, the fact that this is already May, we're requesting this as an urgency from not only our commission, but the town, that we get this passed so they can get this accomplished.
Any other comments?
Joe, I'd like to comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bill, I do find this a suitable request from you as far as what the fire department needs. I'm an ex-firefighter and I have a deep understanding of the safety issues involved. But I don't feel like we as the Historic Preservation Commission can vote for this, because it goes so diametrically opposed to the Lake City Design Guidelines. That being said, I see that you have already submitted a variance request to the town trustees, which may be the next step, or you may have to go through the planning commission, planning and zoning. But I don't feel like we can do this. I think it sets a bad precedent for our commission, even though I support the project. If you can understand my parsing up of that decision. So that would be my opinion, is that I don't feel like we can support it, even though personally we support it.
I understand. And that's kind of why talking with Denny and some of the other folks that maybe, put this on the city. Ari, of course, Hall is our chairman of the board for the fire district. And he's over there on Bluff and I think it's A Street. And anyways, he may have gone to the town too. He put up a fence and had to get a variance. And I think he actually went that way with the town, actually approved it for him. So for a high.
Who are you talking about there?
That's Ari Hall.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it's probably been 4 years or more since he put a fence up on his adjoining lots. But anyway, I think he may have got a variance from the town also on that. So.
He got a variance from the town for specific reasons that he gave to the town trustees. Yes, you're
Yeah.
correct about that. And I can say that, there was another variance granted for a house that was across the street from one of the RV parks in town. And interestingly enough, that could be used as an argument in your case also. But again, we did not grant those variances. It had to go to, and it was the town trustees, I believe, that did those. I'm not sure how the planning commission would come in, but that would be up to the town to decide how they wanted to deal with it. The only other point that, I would just make a couple points here. The reason for asking for this fence height is so that the public can view the houses in the historic district. And I mean, there's only one house that would be affected by the fencing that you're doing there, and that's the one between you and Henson Creek. If that were a very historic residence, then perhaps this might be looked at somewhat more differently. But the people that built that house had to follow the rules and regulations in the design guidelines for Lake City. And it may well have cost them more to do that than what would have been the case otherwise. And the view to the public view of their property would be affected by this. But at this point, let me, I sent to the members of the commission, let me just read. I sent an email to Jen Wrightsell and the mayor yesterday that said the following. As you can see, this letter from the fire department is addressed to the mayor and the town trustees. And it is my view that this is the proper authority to whom to address this variance request. I cannot say for sure, but I suspect that at our HPC meeting tomorrow morning, we may refer this directly to the trustees, as our design guidelines do not allow for 6-foot fences at the front of properties in the historic district. I'm just pointing this out to you, as you may want to consider adding this request to the agenda for your town meeting on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. For the fire department has indicated some urgency in addressing this issue due to safety concerns regarding unauthorized persons accessing the training equipment, some already there that they want fenced in. And I sent that as chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. My view on it, and I agree with Jody, I don't think it's up to us to vary from the design guidelines that we have on this. And I think my suggestion would be a motion that indicates that and suggests that we send this to the town trustees. Our bylaws, I think it is, says that the applicant can have this brought up at the next trustee meeting. The fact that that's tomorrow, I'm not sure whether they'd be prepared to take that up, but I've told them about it and it's up to them to decide whether they want to deal with it or whether it's something for the planning commission before they deal with it, but that would be up to them. But if, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess I would ask for comments from the others at this point, whether a scenario like this makes sense or not.
It's too late to get on tomorrow's agenda for the town.
Okay, but I
Unless,
mean,
of course,
that
they,
doesn't need to be part of a motion that we make. That's
yeah, no,
up to
unless,
them
of
as to
course,
what they want to do.
that's all up to them, so.
We need to vote or anything, take any kind of action?
We
As a
need to make a motion as to what we do with this COA request. I mean, I've simply made the suggestion that, I mean, in my opinion, we don't have a choice but to deny it related to the design guidelines that we have, but to point out that the applicant has the ability to take this to the town trustees at the next meeting that they can put it on the agenda.
Joe, are you looking for a motion to deny this request, or are you looking for a motion to refer it to the town?
I would simply state that according to the Historic Preservation Design Guidelines, fences above 6 feet in the front of properties are not allowed. So this would need to go to town officials for a variance on that, something to that effect.
Denny, are you comfortable with that?
Well, Joe already knows my opinion on this. So I'm not going to make that motion. I think this is a common sense issue that goes far and above our guidelines. So I'm not going to make that motion. I think we should have common sense on this, and I will go to the town trustee meeting and bring this up.
Okay, my only comment to that is in the ordinance related to our authority to do things, there's no authority given us anywhere to grant such kind of variances.
I
And I
understand.
would
Bill.
like, I mean, I will ask the town to put a question to the town lawyer next time as to what legal authority we have to do things like this or not. And I'm simply suggesting that out of abundance of legal caution at this point, we follow the ordinance as I understand it at this point, that we don't have the authority to do that and just refer it to the town trustees.
I would move to deny this application based on Lake City design guidelines covering fences along the front and sides of properties within the historic district.
I'll second that.
Okay, do you want to have a sentence in there that
No,
nothing further that explains that the owner can go
we
to the
don't
town
need
trustees?
to do that.
Okay,
That's all
okay,
part
I'm
of
just
the-
asking.
Yeah, that's all part of the background stuff. Hagendorf as the representative knows that what the next steps are. They're laid out pretty clearly. I don't think we need to address that in our motion.
Okay, well, we have a motion then. Is there a second to that motion?
Deborah seconded.
Okay. Go ahead and read that formally once more.
Okay, let me write it down. Move to deny the application based on Lake City design guidelines covering fence design along front and sides of properties in the Lake City Historic District.
Okay, any further comments on the motion that was just read? No, then let's take a roll call vote on that.
Houston,
Yes.
Brannon,
Nay, no,
Lindsay, yes. Goodman
Yes.
and Fox.
Yes. Okay, so, Bill, we will inform the town of what the Historic Preservation Commission did. As you know,
And we'll
you
get
have the
that done
opportunity
today.
to take this to the, pardon?
We'll get that done today.
Yeah,
Make
we'll
sure-
we'll get that done today. So, I mean, if I were you, I would just get a hold of Jen at the town office and we will be informing them all, but letting her know that you want to have this taken up at the earliest possible town trustee meeting.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time. Thanks for y'all's willingness to serve on these boards. I know it takes volunteers to make the village run, so thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
No,
Bill. We
thanks for all
appreciate
your
your service.
communication on this.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Okay,
let's go to COA 2021-05, the Harrington property at 103 First Street, requesting a deck replacement and a little bit of a change in deck steps on that. Who was the 2-member subcommittee on that?
Jody and I were.
Okay. We don't have any representative from there. Would one of you just give an outline of what this is and what your evaluation and recommendation is?
Jody, would you like for me to do that?
Yes, please, and thank you.
This is this is simply rebuilding a structure identical to the existing structure for safety purposes. And the only modification is the addition of a small set of steps that goes into the side yard. And we saw no reason or anything in the design guidelines that caused this project to be of any concern, and are recommending that it be approved.
Comments, questions?
I've worked with Harrington on previous COAs, and he does good work. And I would very much, recommend this one also.
Yeah, he put in fencing we dealt with earlier, yes.
Mm,
I don't have any questions. It looks fair. It looks pretty straightforward. And if that's the case, and there's no further comments then we need a motion and a second on that.
I'll be happy to make a motion that we approve COA 2021-05 for the Harrington deck as requested.
I'll second that.
Sounds good. And when Jody gets it written down, just read it back and we'll move from there.
Moves to approve COA 2021-05 for the Harrington deck as presented. Is that correct?
Sounds it.
Okay, if there's no further questions about that, then let's have a roll call vote on that motion to approve.
Houston,
Yes.
Brannon,
Yes,
Lindsay, yes. Goodman
Yes.
and Fox.
Yes,
Motion
okay,
passes.
next. Pardon?
Nothing.
Okay. Next order of business is COA 2021-06. And I can see we have to make a correction on that. I got too many Harringtons in there. It's Hatton rather than Harrington, who the property owner is here. So let's make sure we have that correct in our dealing with this COA. It's at 425 Silver Street. This is one of the most historic residential properties in town. It qualifies for National Historic Designation all by itself, even if it wasn't in the historic district, and has a number of historic buildings on it. The request is to replace the deteriorating siding on a barn in the back. Let's see, and just on the south and west facing sides of the building. And that would include rebuilding of a door on the south side. The windows that are there, and they're kind of funky, certainly not original windows, but they don't propose to do anything with the windows that are on the west side right now. But to replace the board and batten siding on it. And Grant, would you like to read can you see that to read the evaluation thing that we put together?
Yeah, I've got it right in front of me here, Joe.
Okay,
This is our evaluation recommendation for COA 2021-07, 325 North Silver Street, owned by Phil Hatton. It's a
let me stop you there.
07.
Let's make sure because in the agenda, it says 06. I think we had and this one says 07. I think we need to change it to 06.
Oh, I do see that.
Anyway, that's noted. Go ahead.
Contributing residence and barn, we're replacing the siding and doors on the south and west elevations. This COA is a request to replace board and batten siding on a circa 1900 barn. This building is prominently seen in a well-known circa 1900 overview photo of Lake City and is associated with the town's most historic residential properties. The warped and deteriorated siding cannot be easily or cost-effectively repaired and is in need of replacement. It should be done with rough cut boards similar to the original wood, so that the different types of batten used on the south and west sides are adhered to, as much of the upper trim below the roof that is in good repair should be retained. The barn door on the south will be replicated, as will the small opening on the west side, both with rough cut boards. Current windows will not be altered. Joe and I recommend that rough milled lumber, if possible, from a local or regional sawmill be utilized throughout, and that close attention be paid to keeping the current location of openings in the barn walls. Wood preservatives, clear sealant, or paint is recommended, as it is evident the building originally had some sort of protection, but that is up to the owner's discretion. We recommend that COA 2021-06 be approved as proposed with the following conditions. The shape of the batten should be replicated of the original. Upper trim should be preserved where possible. South barn door and the west side access opening should be rebuilt to replicate as original as much as possible, and rough cut board should be used.
Any questions about this one?
Sure.
Just-
Oh, go ahead, Denny.
Oh, I just have one comment. What is the correct address? Because you first said 425, I see
Oh,
325.
yeah, there's mess ups here. It's 425.
Oh, yeah.
The question that I have, I believe it's the barn that I can see from the motel up here on my Bluff Street property. It's the one that the guests enjoy when they drink their wine out front of their rooms in the evening. Will the color match the existing wood, or will that raw, rough cut lumber be a light color and look brand new? Or can the color of the new wood duplicate the color of the rest of the barn?
I'll give you a little bit of history here. The owner of this barn, when we first became a commission, put in a request to redo the whole thing and put it up on a foundation and such. And that was one of the first things that we did. And we got a hold of History Colorado people about rehabilitating an old barn like this. And they hooked us up with this guy up in Fort Collins who was an expert on rehabilitating old wood like that, and he wanted us to keep that old wood on it. Since then, in my experience at these conferences, Saving Places conferences and so on, as especially those of you that saw some of the design guideline evaluations and things like that that they did at the meeting, there are all kinds of different arguments as to what the best things are to do. Our design guidelines for Lake City indicate that the owner has discretion as to what color to paint things and what kind of surface stuff to put on the outside. I think I sent to you all, there's a photograph of that barn from 1900, right around 1900, that shows the west side of the barn, which faces your motel, as being brown and the north side white. And it looks like it might have had whitewash on it. And there's residue on three sides of the barn that indicate that there was whitewash or some kind of stuff there. So things were put on in the past. And there's no real strong argument that the Historic Preservation District can tell the owner what to put on the outside of it. So we could recommend that the wood that the color of the wood be preserved in that, but I don't think we could say one way or another what it should be. And I guess I would leave it with that. Does that answer your question?
It does. And my personal opinion is that's a worthwhile recommendation.
I can tell you that the owner, I mean, I first thought that the owner probably wanted to paint the barn in the similar white with green trim colors that the house and the garage are, but apparently he seems to be more amenable to the idea of keeping it more rustic looking, which is fine, but in the end, it's up to him.
Joe, did you hear from Bruce Curry? He called me yesterday.
Yeah.
And said that he's now proposing using rough cut lumber that would be derived from beetle kill timber.
Well, he's got something set up with beetle kill spruce timber from a sawmill in Saguache. And I think that would be acceptable. I looked up, I wasn't sure whether spruce was the best kind of wood to use for that, because I thought I'd heard before that it wasn't as good as fir and pine and stuff, but from what I read on the internet, that's not a problem.
My brother, Scott, will be working with Bruce Curry on this project. And I think that I have gotten through to him about the fact that this needs to be done properly. Bruce Curry seemed to think in his discussions with Scott that this is going to be a very fast project, and I believe Scott has disabused him of that notion because it's not going to be a fast project to be done correctly. And I know Mr. Hatton wants things to be done correctly, which is, you know, bless him for that. And Scott was also talking about ways to use a router to cut the battens to replicate the ones that found on the barn already, so that they're not just square, rectangular, but actually routed on each side.
Well, there's two different types of batten, and that's why in the evaluation and the statement, there's, I think Brand has referred to it as kind of crown molding
Yeah.
shape on one side, but on the other side, it's a more simple type. And I think Bruce was talking about using some of the old wood on the barn to cut up and make the battens out of. But yeah, there need to be two different shapes of batten for the different sides.
I have written a draft motion based on the language in this evaluation. If somebody wants to make a motion.
Well, are you saying you would like to propose a draft for the,
No, I'm just trying to get ahead of the game.
oh, okay. Someone want to take a stab at a motion? I mean, we tried to provide some of the wording there in our recommendation. Deborah has suggested that we recommend I guess something to the effect of a sealant that maintains the color of the natural wood. Is that what you would like to see said?
The color of the existing barn wood. That dark color.
Well, I mean, I think we can only say the sealant to maintain the color of the natural wood, because the existing barn wood won't be there anymore, except for the battens, I guess.
Yeah, I'm saying the dark color of the existing wood on the barn. Even whether it's there or not.
Oh, okay.
Because to me,
Okay,
natural color means, would be that more blonde color of a newly sawn wood. And that's not what I'm looking for. And I'm just one of us.
So you want to see a darker color, yeah.
Because they're not doing the entire barn, are they? Aren't they just doing two sides?
Just two
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah, so it should,
So you want it to match, right, Deborah?
yes.
You want it to say to match the other sides of the barn. I would just say that right now, the south and west sides look a little bit different than the north and east sides, because they've been weathered so much, and the color is a little bit different. But what you're recommending, as I understand it, is that they put on sealant that makes it similar to the east and north sides. Is that right?
Well, I guess that's fine with me. I haven't seen the east and north side. I can't see them from here, but if that's what those of you who've looked at it real closely, I just think if it's just left natural, it will look brand new.
Well, but I can just tell you that the experts on wood preservation and so on just say that when you replace old wood on a barn like this, you expect it that it's going to look new for a while, but that it will weather and end up looking older. But it'll take some years, yes. So they're in fact, what this wood expert guy had suggested that you don't put sealant on it. Because that can cause problems with, yeah, he was indicating it could cause problems with rotting and things like that. But it had some kind of paint or whitewash or something on it originally, and that's what we based our evaluation on.
Okay. Well, then I'm happy to withdraw that recommendation and instead of complicating things.
Okay, I might make a stab at the making the motion. I would motion that we approve COA 2021-06 425 North Silver Street. A request from the owner to replace the west and south facing sides of a board and batten barn circa 1900, and that the replacement replicate as closely as possible the current board and bat configuration that exists there, retaining doors and windows exactly as they are and maintaining as much of the soffit as possible. That's just a rough stab.
I wouldn't use the word soffit because that's as far as I understand, and I looked this up, the soffit is something that's actually not on that building. It's the underside of where a roof would come out, and they don't really have that.
So
I
eave
would just say trim.
trim or something.
Yeah.
Jody, I'm sorry. I'm sure that was a mess.
So Grant, my suggestion would be to basically use the language in this evaluation, which I think lays it out pretty clearly. And it basically says that we recommend approval with the following conditions, and then lays out each of those conditions as written in the evaluation.
Fine with me, Jody.
So, but I would still like to attribute the motion to you, if that is acceptable.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, Jody, go ahead and read what you think it should be.
Move to approve COA 2021-06 with the following conditions: that the batten shape replicate the original, that the upper trim should be preserved where possible, that the south-facing barn door and the small west-facing access be rebuilt to replicate the original, and that rough-cut lumber should be used.
I would just note that the motion is to approve COA 2021-06 as proposed with the following conditions. And as you noted there.
Good catch. Houston, does that meet your approval, sir?
Yeah, I think we hit it all, Jody.
Okay, and we're still looking for a second.
I'll second it.
And Brennan second.
Okay, let's have one last read through and then we'll vote on it.
Motion
We'll see if
to
there's any comments after that read through.
motion to approve COA 2021-06 as proposed with the following conditions: that the batten shape replicate the original, that the upper trim should be preserved where possible, that the south-facing barn door and the small west-facing access be rebuilt to replicate the original, and that rough-cut lumber should be used.
Okay, any questions about that or comments? And who seconded it?
Jenny did.
Jenny did. Okay, well then let's have a roll call vote on that most seconded motion.
Houston,
Yes.
Brannon,
Yes.
Lindsay, yes. Goodman
Yes.
and Fox.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Okay, we have one more COA to deal with. This this deals with a proposal for a new house on the corner of Bluff and 8th Streets. It is a fairly restricted question that we're dealing with here. What I suggested that the owner get this in right away before they spend money on expensive house drawings and stuff. And we will suggest to them that, I mean, they've already put in a COA application. Later, when they get more details on the proposal, they can put in an addendum to this particular COA to deal with those things. But the question right now is the question of orientation of the house, which they have requested the front of the house to face 8th Street rather than the north-south streets that in our design guidelines. The recommendation is that houses are oriented similarly to the original houses in the town of Lake City, with the front of the houses facing east or west, facing the streets that go north and south. And this particular request is to not follow that recommendation, but to have the front of the house face north on 8th Street. And the reason they're asking for that is because otherwise it would face the RV park across the street on Bluff Street. And they would rather have it face a less congested area. The other request that they're making in their design there is that, again, rather than gables and the front of the house facing Bluff Street, they want to have the garage facing Bluff Street. And although, I mean, there would be a gable facing there, it would be the garage facing the street rather than facing the alley.
Joe, I'm not a big fan of this design. It looks basically like a modular to me, and I especially don't like a garage that would open out onto Bluff Street. So I'm not impressed with this design.
Any other, okay, we've heard Grant's opinion. Any other opinions on this?
Sorry, go ahead.
I agree with Grant on that. In this particular case, I know the location of this, and they could very easily put the entrance to the garage in the alley, and it'd be an easy entrance. And I agree. I don't think the garage facing should be towards Bluff Street, but that's my opinion.
Other comments?
I do have a question or a point of clarification that it would be the roof would be correct in that it would be long ways from Bluff towards the alley, right? As we require in our design guidelines. Yeah, I don't have the proper words, I'm sorry. But like the long part of the roof would face Bluff to alley. Not,
That was my understanding.
okay, I'm just making sure. That's the clarification I'm trying to make.
Well, I'm gonna look at the picture here. Let me see what the,
Did we receive a picture? Hold on.
yes,
You did?
it's on the COA
drawing.
application.
It's a
Or
drawing.
a drawing, I'm sorry.
I don't believe I received that, or at least I didn't save it. I have a recommendation.
Okay, well, it should have gone out when it was assigned to people for doing the evaluation, but I mean, I'm
Okay.
looking at it here. They have, yes, you're correct. The the house is oriented with gables to the east and west, and then to fulfill some of the design guideline requests for gables associated with the front of the building. There's a small gable over the front door facing 8th Street, but then facing Bluff Street, they have the large gable facing the Bluff Street, but with a 2 large door garage facing Bluff Street there. And that's what Grant and Denny are reacting to, as that would be what would be facing the main north-south thoroughfares with all the other houses there.
I think it would
Generally
be
with-
preferable to put that garage on the alley. If there's going to be an attached garage, the doors ought to go to the alley.
Well, I would agree with that. Are we first okay with the idea that the front of the house faces 8th Street rather than Bluff Street?
In my opinion, the design guidelines are very clear that the garage is on the alley side. And with the entrance to the building, it's also very clear that it's on the gabled end in the front of the lot. This is a little bit complicated on that because 8th Street, it's also on another street since it's on a corner. You know, so that complicates it a little bit for me, but the design guidelines say that the entrance goes on the front of the lot, which is of course on Bluff Street. And I'd also like to say that I agree with Grant. My first opinion of this and looking at it is it looks like a modular home.
Is this a
Um,
modular home?
No.
Oh, okay.
There is some precedent right in the neighborhood of having the front of the residence facing 8th Street with the duplex that Al Brown built on the corner of 8th and Silver.
Although that's not in the historic
That's not
district,
the
Jody.
Historic
Oh.
district, right?
Okay, well, there you go.
Okay. Well, actually, Jody, there is another precedent that we approved, was it last year or year before, of it's across from the school. Remember that little house that was built that had a not a Silver Street, a Gunnison Street address, but we approved the front of it to be on, what is that? 7th Street or 6th Street?
Yeah,
Remember
but
that?
that's because that lot was divided. And
Yeah.
there was no way that it could, I mean, if it faced Gunnison Avenue, it would face the other house there. It's a very small house, but you're right. We approved a house facing one of the streets, the numbered streets, and we requested that there be a gable, a small gable that faced that over the front door, which is similar to what they have here. Yes, you're right. The other thing that we did, we approved, but I mean, this has other qualifications. We approved a new house there by the river that faces, I forget whether it's 1st or 2nd, maybe it's 3rd Street. But that we pretty much had to do because otherwise it would have had to, the front would have had to face the river.
And their orientation went east to west as required in the guidelines.
Right.
Joe, I'm imagining he's dealing with 2 lots there. You couldn't build on one lot, so he must have a 50-foot frontage on Bluff Street.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
right? You can't do on one lot.
He may even have 3 lots.
That's where those
but
vans
at
were
least
parked.
2.
Remember
Right.
those vans were parked there this
Yeah.
past-
The city van, yes.
or school.
School,
Yeah.
yeah.
The school Suburbans.
I mean, there is one other aspect that comes into this, and that is somewhat similar to what we dealt with in the fire department request here. There has been precedent for the town to approve a 6-foot fence across the street from RV parks. And the main reason they want the garage facing the RV park, Bluff Street, is to buffer the disturbance that they don't like at the RV park. I think my main point would be this house, who knows what's going to happen in the future in Lake City? At some point, I would guess that the town will develop such that it probably won't have RV parks within the town, so close in the town and within the historic district. The house will probably outlive or may possibly outlive the life of RV parks there. And I would argue that we shouldn't be approving designs that are based on possibly temporary situations there. If we were to say that, no, they can't build a garage facing that way if they want more buffer to the congestion there, they could request a variance from the town with regard to fencing there. And their next door neighbor, Ari Hall, as Bill Hagendorf pointed out, for different reasons, got variance for fencing down the road there. But personally, I mean, I would agree with Grant's original contention that the orientation here, I don't have a problem with putting the front of the entrance to the house to 8th Street, but I don't think I would go for the double garage facing Bluff Street there. It should face the alley.
I would agree that I would rather see the entrance to the residence face 8th Street and not have a 6-foot fence on Bluff Street with the garage on the alley. I just think that overall that makes more sense as long as the orientation with the gable ends is correct and that the garage is not facing Bluff Street but facing the alley. I would approve or support the entrance to the residence being on 8th Street with those other conditions, or at least that one other condition, because I don't want to see a 6-foot fence on that corner, you know. And if we can, and honestly, Joe, I don't agree. I don't think RV parks are going anywhere. I don't see them disappearing. So.
Okay, well, we're talking about 50 or 100 years from now.
Yeah. Two things, first of all, isn't that big fence down there, was it really approved to block the view of the RV park? Because it was my understanding that it was approved for safety reasons because there was a deaf child there.
Ooh.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so then the
There
RV
was-
argument, yeah,
There was.
the
there
RV
was a
argument, it doesn't seem valid to me. You know, we don't get to throw up fences to cover up an ugly business, you know,
Deborah,
because
we don't do that, and we did not approve it. We did not approve, the commission did not approve a 6-foot fence at a residence. And they got a variance and approval for that from the town trustees for a residence across the street from the Henson Creek RV park. So there is a 6-foot fence at a residence across from the Henson Creek RV park because they requested it because the RV park was there.
so it
But
wasn't
for
because of
safety
a deaf
reasons.
child.
I'm talking about Henson Creek RV park. It's a different location.
Oh,
All I'm saying is that there is some precedence for that. And whether we
Oh.
want to inform the owners that that's possible or not, but they're making this request because they don't like the disturbance at the RV park.
According to the design guidelines, the entrance should be at the gabled end facing the front of the lot, which is Silver Street. And it would seem to me that they could put an entrance there. And perhaps a second entrance on 8th Street. But if they put an entrance on Silver Street, whether they use it as their primary entrance or not, it would satisfy the design guidelines of our historic district.
Okay, well, you mean Bluff Street, but, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. yeah.
I'm
Thank you for
I'm
knowing what-
interested to hear, I mean, at this point in the discussion where, Grant, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, whether they use that Bluff Street entrance or not. I'm most opposed to that garage opening onto Bluff. I'm amenable to just about anything other than that garage on Bluff Street.
Yeah.
Okay, then, I mean, this will be up to the individual commissioners to decide what they think is appropriate here. But we could try out a motion either to demand that the front be on Bluff Street or that the 8th Street entrance is okay, or that two entrances. I think the owners would, they want to do it. They seem to want to do everything they can to buffer the west part of the building from the noise and congestion associated with the RV park. But I think we need to entertain a motion and see how the commission members react to it.
So before we do that, there is, I believe in the design guidelines, Deborah, perhaps you can fact check me on this. There is some precedent or something that covers the fact that there's a main entrance on the east-west axis, whichever, and that, but that a secondary entrance is actually desired on the north-south axis. It seems like, let me look at you guys go ahead. I'm gonna look in the design guidelines.
Well, and remind me here, I think, I mean, the complementary area in the historic district, I don't think this site is within it. It's actually across the street on Bluff Street. So that there's more leniency in the complementary area, but I think that includes where the RV park is and not where this this new building request is.
One question. If you allow a front door on Bluff and on 8th Street, would that restrict the building of a fence on Bluff if they wanted to put a 6-foot fence on Bluff as a side part of their house? Because if you say that's the front of the house, then that restricts it to the 41-inch fence.
Well, Denny, the 41, well, see, here's the thing. The 41-inch fence rule applies to the frontage of properties, and if it's on a corner, then it's both roads. So the 41-inch historic district design guidelines would indicate that a 6-foot fence would not be allowed in those areas, so that the owner would have to ask the town for a variance like the owners did across from Henson Creek.
Okay,
Like at my property, which is on the corner, the fences on both Gunnison and 4th Street have to be 40 inches.
yeah. And that really looks nice. That one goes all the way back like that.
Yes, I know.
Is someone looking something
I
up?
think
or
Jody's
what's-
looking some up, and I'm gonna look up this complimentary area thing.
So in the design guidelines, under new construction, for entrances and doors,
You have a page number?
page 30,
Okay,
it states, consider placing your entrance at the front of the house facing the street. Attached garages should have doors at the rear or setback from primary facade and include a front porch as part of the entrance. So the language there is consider, not required or should. Although the garages should. So that it's a bit of a parsing of language,
yeah,
but it does, to me, that does not say it has to. The other guidelines for new construction in the historic district, talk about the long narrow form with the narrow end facing the primary street, the setback, the steeply pitched roof. But I am not seeing anything that says that the entrance must be on the narrow end. And if it weren't on a corner, of course, I think being on the corner kind of changes the elements of the house. And I believe that they could meet the design guidelines and still have the main entrance on the north facing side of the building, but no garage on the Bluff Street, no.
yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think we can be flexible enough to approve the front entrance to the building on 8th Street. But I also am not keen on seeing a double garage door facing Bluff Street, yeah.
And I wouldn't want to see a 6-foot fence. I would be more flexible about the entrance than the fencing, because a 6-foot fence on that corner would just not break my heart, but it would give me heartburn at least.
Well, I mean, we are not in a position of approving a 6-foot fence there. All
Yeah,
I'm
well,
saying to
I'm just
you is that if the
Trying to
owner
think
owns-
ahead of problems that we may face in the future with our decisions now.
Yeah, okay. Well, so are you kind of indicating that if we don't approve, I mean, you're kind of suggesting that if we don't approve the garage facing Bluff Street, we open ourselves to the possibility of a 6-foot fence there?
No, not the garage per se, but I think if we insisted on having the entrance face Bluff Street, I think that we would be kind of opening that door to them, perhaps.
Asking for a 6-foot fence.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I got
Yeah.
you. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I agree, based on the language in the design guidelines, as Jody's just read them, we cannot approve the garage on Bluff Street, but can approve the
Yeah.
entrance on 8th
I'm
Street.
in the middle of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. I'll give you a call back when it's over.
Houston, what do you think?
Yeah,
Okay,
I could go with that. I feel the strongest on the garage.
Yeah, me too. And trying to head off a fence question, but
You know,
I drive that corner frequently, and there's a bit of a visibility problem. If there was a fence there, I would know who's coming up 8th Street.
mhm.
Well, that's a safety issue. And we've run up again with that question before. And I would bet that the building inspector would not approve a 6-foot fence there because of those safety issues of seeing people around the corner. Yes, you're right.
That's a hard
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
So probably that fence issue will not come up.
so I'm not sure what exactly the COA, I don't know why I don't have a copy of that.
Asked for.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it exactly it's asking for.
Let me see if I can,
While Joe is looking that up, may I be a little bit snarky?
oh,
Okay,
yeah.
If we approved the garage on Bluff Street, the RV park would lose much needed street parking for OHV trailers. As there's trailers parked in that spot.
they won't be able to park there anyway, period. Whether the garage is there or not, they can't, they will find themselves in a meat grinder if they try to park there when Lynn Hudgens is living there, which is
Yeah, right.
who this home is being built for.
That's good to know.
No, that's true. They're parking there now because there's nobody living there,
Mm.
yeah. All this, I mean, I requested basically, Rob, to put this in now, to get this question of orientation dealt with by us before he spent a lot of money on drawings. So all we're gonna deal with right now, if it makes sense to you, if it doesn't, then let me know. Whether the orientation in these drawings, and I'm sorry, I mean, maybe I can't. Does anybody else have a copy of the COA here that can be shared?
Yeah, I just opened it up, and the brief description of the project is new construction of approximately 1,700 square foot, 1-story residence with 2-car garage. And that's the written part. And then there is a drawing of the 8th Street view, and there is a drawing of the Bluff Street view.
Can you possibly share, is it possible for you to share that so everybody can, so Jody can
Yeah.
see that too?
Hold on. Multiple participants can share. See if you have the share screen button now.
Oh, wait, I just lost everything. Hang on. Share screen.
Yeah. There we go.
Can you see it?
Yep.
It said it's
Yeah.
there.
All right, so there's the
Awesome.
little written request. Here is the, we're so sophisticated.
Wow.
Here's the 8th Street view. With this nice dormer, that helps. And this would be the garage. So that just goes to the other end. They're basically swapping ends. Here's the 8th Street view. So here's the roof coming out over the entrance and the two, so this is what would move down to the other end.
I don't know, in my opinion, it meets the basic design guidelines except for the garage entrance.
Heidi, come here. Come on, come here. You're going outside, come on.
Yeah, that's the only problem I can see. If they'd swap the garage to the east side, it'd be fine with me. The 8th Street entrance doesn't bother me.
Well, if you feel that we're ready to deal with this, then we could use a motion to that, in that regard. I mean, as I said, we don't have anything on the materials used here and things like that. That will come at a later point.
What was the COA number on this again? 2021, what?
8,
08?
08. I would think, and this is not a motion, I'm just throwing this out there. I would think that the motion would say something like to approve the orientation of the residents with the condition or the requirement that the attached garage face east to the alley or something with those elements.
That sounds good, Jody.
There you go, Jody.
That works.
Second it.
I didn't make a, okay.
Well, Jody made a suggestion. Who actually wants to make the motion?
I'll make it. Give me a second to write it out. Proposed residence, to approve COA 2021-08. To approve the orientation of proposed residence as presented with the requirement that attached garage face the alley.
Rather than Bluff Street.
Well, I would assume that is implied.
Okay,
Was that an actual motion, Jody?
Rather than Bluff. That just seems extraneous. I mean, if
Yeah.
it faces the alley,
I don't-
okay, then don't put it in. That's fine.
Yeah, because if
Okay,
it's facing the
so-
alley, it can't be. No.
Jody moves to approve Moves on COA 2021-08 to approve the orientation of the proposed residence as presented with the requirement that the attached garage face the alley.
Okay, is that,
And we're just approving the orientation. We're not approving to move ahead with the construction. You've got.
yes,
an
yeah,
orientation.
no, I think we,
Yep.
yeah, we need to make that really clear. And maybe, let's see, to approve the request for house, to approve the request for house orientation to have the front face 8th Street, but with the garage facing the alley rather than Bluff Street. But no, I think that's okay if you think that's clear enough that that's
Do you
That's what we're
think it's
saying.
narrow
Why don't you read
enough?
it again?
It
Why don't you read it
it
again,
speaks
Jody, and let's see
only
if we get a,
specifically, okay. It speaks specifically only to the orientation and the placement of the garage. I don't think that it can be misunderstood to approve the entire project. Moves on COA 2021-08 to approve orientation of proposed residence as presented with the requirement that the attached garage face the alley.
okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Or you can second it, Grant, if you want.
no, go ahead, Danny.
Okay, we have a second. Let's just have the last formal reading, and then if there's no issues with it, we'll have a vote on it.
Moves on COA 2021-08 to approve orientation of proposed residence as presented with the requirement that the attached garage face the alley.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions at this point? No, then let's have a roll call vote on the motion.
Houston,
Yes,
Brannon,
Yes,
Lindsay, yes. Goodman
Yes.
and Fox.
Yes,
Okay, motion passes.
okay, great. Okay, we're done with the action items. Great. I mean, it's 9:30 now. Let's see if we can get through the rest of this pretty quick. We are formally required to have a discussion on the Saving Places Conference attendees and their evaluations of the conference to obtain the reimbursement of the grant we got for people to participate in that conference. So at this point, we have 9 reports from the 10 people who received scholarships. And just a few minutes ago, I received a telephone call from Judd, which I had to tell him that I'll talk to him a little bit later, but I suspect that relates to the other one. So it looks like the last one, we'll get all those in. I think the way I want to deal with this is just to have each of you briefly make some comments about that conference. And then I'll say a few things about the trustees and their comments. And that should fulfill the formal discussion of the conference. So why don't we do this alphabetically, and we'll start with Deborah. Just your assessment of, and it sounds like, I mean, I didn't realize it. You've been to these conferences before, is that right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, okay, well, uh, I'm curious, and so what did you think about this one as associated with the in-person ones? How good a job did they do with the virtual thing?
Well, I think the virtual thing is nice because it's easy to participate. But of course, there's something special about being together with people and sitting around a round table at lunch together. You know, the alliances that you make, you know, I didn't meet anybody, but when I actually attended this conference in the past, I was rubbing elbows and politicking for my job and meeting lots of new like-minded people who remain allies when issues come up to call upon. So, you know, I do look forward to this conference being in person again, but I thought they did a fabulous job doing it by internet.
Yeah, okay, great. I would agree with that, yeah. Is
Yeah.
there any, can you say anything about the best session that you saw, or what you got out of it?
Well, for me, it's because of my career as a marketer. I attended the Adobe Spark one because that was specifically about marketing. And what came to mind for me is that a lot of communities are really doing a lot to promote what their historic district is doing and really engaging the community. And we're not maybe doing any outreach to the community to say, this is important, this is what we're doing, these are decisions that we're making. You know, there was a little bit of a support for my thinking that when I read the trustees' comments, because they really seem to say, oh, wow, this seems important, where maybe before, you know, Lumberyard Doug said, we are quickly becoming aware, which kind of meant to me he wasn't aware before that this is important for revenue for the town. And so I want to just throw this out here, you know, just to say, is there more that we could be doing to promote the historic district and its importance to the community? And I also say that because I worry a little bit about our historic district, particularly in the summer, because it doesn't, you know, that's not what people feel when they go downtown anymore because of the kind of traffic that we have now. It's a real significant change. And so, you know, could we engage the community more in being concerned about the overall feel of our cultural heritage in our historic district, because it's not being addressed specifically.
Well, thank you. And I actually think, I mean, those are really good points. And I mean, this commission should be doing more to have public outreach and so on. And I think that's an issue we need to try to deal with in a different setting in the future. So thank you. Yeah. Denny?
Yeah, well, I would agree. I think Deborah, that was a good analysis. I like what you said. I found the conference very educational as well as entertaining. And I would love to go in person, as Deborah did, to those type of conferences, because I agree. I think the in-person makes a big difference. The one session I really enjoyed is where you had two persons discussing the same rehabilitation or rebuilding of historic buildings. And what I learned from that is using the same guidelines, the Secretary of guidelines, two people can have two different opinions and neither one are really wrong. It really does show you can look at the same guidelines from different points of view, and doesn't necessarily mean that one of you is wrong. And in that discussion, and I think some of the rest of you heard that, it was an excellent presentation, and they actually involved the audience and their opinion. And the audience was just as separated or split on some of the decisions as the commentators. So I found that quite interesting. I enjoyed several others, but I found that that was the best presentation.
Well, I totally agree with Denny, and that's what I said in my report. That one I found absolutely fascinating. And when I wrote to the trustees about the reports that they need to do and so on, I pointed that one out and suggested that they look at it. And I know Michelle Martin did. I suggested it to Judd, and I think he's looked at that one. But if you others haven't seen that one, if you go into the site, Saving Places Conference 2021, it comes, there's a place that you can push to see the taped sessions, and it's the 13th one down. It's called Interpreting the Standards, a debate on something or other. But if you haven't seen that one, I strongly suggest you do. It does exactly what Denny says. It provides a really nice example of how you can argue both sides of an issue, and that in different communities, you can come up with different answers as to interpretation of the standards, depending on what that community thinks is important in terms of its history. Grant.
I've gone to a number of these, and like Deborah, I've been to a number in person. They did a fantastic job remotely, but I think I would prefer to go in person. Although it was also great that I could just tune in from my office or my house and attend these. So the access was interesting with the remote. I made some good contacts. I made some invitations for people from other historic districts to visit us, and I've got reciprocal invitations so that I plan to visit a couple other historic districts. The classes were excellent. The one that I particularly enjoyed was about ethnic diversity and preservation districts. And this is an increasingly national trend where you're not just looking at well-to-do white people and preserving their houses, but you're looking at immigrants, Native Americans, African Americans, and how we preserve those bits of history in an historic district. And we've done pretty well. It's minuscule in Lake City, but we have preserved and marked the Willis Williams house, which is to the north of the school building. And I think we've just got to be aware that we've got a full spectrum of history that we need to interpret and preserve these structures, representing not just one particular aspect of our history. Anyway, I had a good time. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Grant. Jody?
Well, like Grant said, it's more fun in person because you get to rub elbows, like Deborah noted. I like this because we can go back and attend classes that we would not have been able to attend in person because we were taking a different class. You know, I've often found that one block of classes has 2 or 3 different class sessions that I want to go to, and I can't do that. So, you know, maybe a mix in the future of live and online. I also wanted to speak to what Deborah hit on about the education of the public and our officials in particular about the importance of preservation. Bruce sits as an ex parte member of the Town Planning and Zoning Commission, and I have heard the head of that commission say, and I quote, "I hate preservation."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which speaks, just infuriated me in the background as I was listening to that. I was just like, because they view it as like a property rights issue, and they don't see the economic impact, which brings me to the surprise favorite of the classes or sessions that I attended, which was the keynote speaker, Joe Mancusi, I think it was. Started off, I thought it was kind of a dry presentation, and it turned out to be such an exciting presentation because he was able to nuts and bolts, no gray area, black and white, prove that economic preservation has historic preservation has real life economic benefits, like far and above not preserving things. By preserving the historic elements of a downtown, you get 1,000 times economic return than if you just let free market do its thing. So I personally would like to see that as a required session for our local leaders, just so that they get an idea of the impact that historic preservation can make. So that was it.
That was the dollars and cents at 9:15, first session.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that also.
Joe, do you think next year we could maybe invite the chair of the Town Planning Commission to see whether he couldn't attend Saving Places?
He wouldn't.
We can try.
Who is it? Who is the chair of the?
Dozier.
Andy Dozier.
Oh,
I was curious too.
Yeah, I
That's too
couldn't
bad,
believe
yeah.
he said that out loud.
Yeah.
And just that statement, all of the other stuff around that statement that he made, you could sort of be like, okay, that's an education thing, but he literally, I am not paraphrasing, he said, I hate preservation. And it's because of the kinds of standards that we're trying to hold the town to. And somehow he thinks that, it's like, if you hate preservation, do you hate zoning? Because it's sort of the same, it's the same thing, We do have the right to say, I don't want a hog farm next to my property. We have that right. And I think that it's not too far a step beyond that to say, I want that beautiful building next to me preserved in some way because it improves the value of my property. So yeah, education. And I think that we could go a long way to helping the public does not see the value of the work that we are attempting to do. And I think it's beyond education. It's a, kind of a shaping of our image. So Deborah, you're the marketing expert in this group. Maybe you can just brainstorm some ideas. I wouldn't want you to implement them on your own. I don't want you to do all the work, but you do know how that kind of stuff works best. Maybe you can help us with that.
Maybe Deborah hosting a cocktail reception with Heidi.
At my historic motel.
Yeah, no, but these are things we need to think more seriously about, and we need to take a little time for some of this brainstorming and get some more public outreach and public information and interaction out there. So please think about that. And I don't want to go on too much longer with this. I will just say that the trustees that participated It took a little pulling teeth to get these reports out of them. But we get a little insight into the fact that they've had some exposure to these issues. And I think, I mean, Jody's comment that yes, in the future, having tapes of these sessions would be very much beneficial. And I think both the Joe Minicozy one and the one that Denny and I were talking about are ones that are available, and that we should try to get every trustee and maybe people on the planning commission to see and try to promote those kinds of things.
Actually, I'd like to listen to that one that Grant on the ethnic housing. If you knew which one that was, I'd like to listen to that one because I didn't hear that.
I can
Well,
look it up.
read his report.
Yeah, it was good. I saw that session too.
Okay, I think that fulfills our, well, it was a good discussion for us anyway, but it also fulfills the requirement for History Colorado on this. Let's go down to the other issues we wanted to deal with. Are we ready to try to move to in-person meetings? I think we should follow what the town does, but let's hear people's comments on this.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm torn on this. In some ways, the work that we do might be easier in person, and it is just personally a lot of work for me to try and put together everything so that I have all of the material ready and so on the other hand, I am multitasking. I am sitting at work and getting paid to attend this. Otherwise, I would have to take a couple, 2 or more hours off every month in order to attend these meetings, since they do fall in my work week. So I'm torn, but I lean towards keeping this online, but that's just me.
Okay, next.
Well, as a retiree, I'm good either way. I'm easy. There's advantages to both. I like being in person, but this is easier.
Grant, what would you like?
I guess I could go either way. I was initially skeptical of these, but now that the computer works, it is a very effective use of your time. On a negative, I'd say I don't think we're engaging the public very well with this sort of a meeting. It's not like we have an audience or that we could invite an audience to attend. I think there's something about meeting in person that you're engaging the public, and maybe we could be doing a sales pitch at the same time. I could go either way.
Okay, we could try to be more trying to promote the idea that these applicants participate in the meetings. But again, I mean, we're doing it during people's work time here, and that makes it difficult for people. But yeah, okay, it can be either way. Deborah, what do you think?
You know, for me, it's about safety first. And, you know, the reason we're online is to stay alive. But the CDC guidelines say that if everybody is vaxxed, you can safely be in the room together, indoors together. If the public were to be coming in, that could, you know, if we're all vaxxed, if the public were to be coming in, that might be a little bit more risky still at this point. So that's, to me, is number one, is that we really do the safest thing possible. And otherwise, I'm flexible either way.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm flexible on it too. As I said, to start out with, I'd kind of like to be consistent with what the town does at its meetings, as we're a commission of the town. But yes, safety is first. And if we were to have more of the public, it would be a bigger issue. I think for the time being, we stick with the Zoom meeting format, and we'll see how things go in Colorado and with the town as to how they want to deal with CDC guidelines and so on. As I understand it right now, I mean, Colorado, the numbers of cases are going up slightly. It may still be an issue we need to be able to be dealing with. And we'll leave it at that. Is that okay? Our next meeting will be Zoom, okay?
That's fine.
Okay, just a quick update on the ordinance change business. I've spent quite a bit of time dealing with this. At this point, I had another, after our workshop, I had another meeting with History Colorado, and I think some of the issues that Deborah brought up with regard to the wording in there and how it relates to the ordinance we already have, it's pretty clear that we need to have some special wording in the ordinance that acknowledges that we already have a historic district and a history of dealing with, and a bunch of contributing buildings here that we're not going to redo. And the suggestions that were made to me that were that we needed to get some input from the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, and that's what I'm trying to get organized right now. This all takes time, but that's what I'm trying to get done at this point, so that what we take to the lawyer, our Lake City lawyer, has enough professional input behind it that he doesn't need to spend a huge amount of time going through other historic preservation ordinances and so on, and to save the town some money. But anyway, that's where it sits right now. I have had some interaction with the lawyer who lives in the Denver area and has a place in Crested Butte, who works with the National Alliance for Historic Preservation. And I'm trying to get his help in getting some input from the National Alliance. History Colorado had some initial interaction with them when we first brought this up. And they basically said, well, you should have done it differently in the first place, which wasn't all that helpful. And so I'm trying to get some help in fixing what we have now. And that's where it sits right now. Are there any questions? Okay. The last one is this question of administrative approval for quote unquote straightforward COA applications. The more I think about this, we really need to have a system where we can administratively approve some applications that come in. We don't need to take all of these things to a full commission evaluation of them. In virtually all other towns, there's a town employee that has some responsibility for looking at applications that come in and deciding which ones could be approved administratively and which ones need to go to the commission. We tried this early on in the life of the Historic Preservation Commission and assigned that duty to the two-person commission, and that ended up not working that well. I would suggest that it might be appropriate to say that, and this would include the requirement that the chair and the vice chair would receive or would be required to participate in the training that History Colorado has for CLGs. They have a good number of trainings. I don't think too many of us have been looking at those. But if the chair and vice chair agree to participate in those to a certain extent, then we might in our bylaws say that when these things come in, they go to the chair and the town manager can decide whether it's dealt with administratively and approve it. And then it would come to the commission at their regular meetings and indicate that certain things were decided by the administrative approval. Are there any questions at this point as to how that might work and what some of the problems might be with it?
So I'm not really sure what you just said. I kind of got lost in your description of that process. But I could see something similar to what we have right now, where we have kind of a rotating 2-person subcommittee to look at each application, and much like Deborah and I did for the Harrington project. But then so I would see a process like the 2 of us look at it and say, oh, this is easy. Yeah, we approve that because they're not doing anything basically. But then have it reviewed by perhaps the chair. I can't remember what the process is. If you have a number of those and they're already approved by the subcommittee, which would be whichever rotating 2-person subcommittee. And then it's just presented as a fait accompli to the general board. I can't remember what that's called. It's a specific process. And then, it's just like we accept all of these.
Yeah, no,
decisions.
there's a name for that. I'm forgetting it right now too, but you're right. No, but here's the issue. I mean, right now we have a complement of commission members that are fairly well knowledgeable of the design guidelines and then how the commission should adhere to it and so on. In the past, we've had commissioners people on the commission that weren't so tied into the ideals. And when we had this set up as you just described, Jody, we had a 2-person subcommission that decided that changing something, a door or window on a very historic residence was fine to do, and it went and it was approved by that 2-person commission or subcommittee and the town manager, and it was done. And they didn't even talk to the owner. They didn't even look at the site. They just decided that changing a door was okay. We can't really have that happen. And that's why I'm suggesting, we need to have the people that make those decisions. Who knows who's going to be on the commission in the future? And if we put this in the bylaws, we need to be pretty sure how this is going to be dealt with. And that's why I'm suggesting that the chair and vice chair receive some training to deal with this. The other thing we can suggest strongly to the town is that, and I think we should do this anyway, that either the town clerk or the town manager receive some training in this. And if the town manager is going to be involved in this, that they do participate in some of the CLG training so they know about it. But that, it's a person that's either full-time or part-time dealing with the historic preservation issues in every CLG town in Colorado that makes these decisions as to whether something such as a new fence that fulfills the design guidelines, okay, we can just approve that without waiting 2 or 3 weeks for a commission meeting to happen. They all do that. We're we're one of the only places in Colorado that has everything go through the full commission. But we need a safe way to have this happen. And I mean, I don't think we can decide on it right now, but I strongly think this is something we should do. And I just give an example, and I think this would be, it's really hard to say, well, we'll only do this with fences or this kind of thing or that kind of thing. For example, there's a request that will be coming in for some metal waste cutting all around the base of a relatively new house in town. Perhaps that would be one thing that wouldn't have to go through the whole commission. But I mean, those are hard things to decide. I mean, maybe we need to say only fences or only certain other kinds of things. Think about this, and at some point we need to have a workshop to come up with some changes to the bylaws associated with this. Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up. You made some good points, Jody. Unless somebody else has something they really want to say at this point, I think that's probably enough here. Are there any other comments on this?
Can I just do a real quick clarification of my no vote?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
people
sure.
Okay. The reason I voted no is I think already our educational department, the school has an exemption on different rules and regulations. And I personally think that our police and fire should have those same exemptions. And that COA that we had for that fence actually shouldn't have actually came through us. It's a safety issue that the city should have automatically taken care of. I am not against having the 41-inch. In fact, if anything, I'm very much for that, our fencing guidelines. But in this particular case, it's because it is a police or fire situation. That is why I voted no. I think that should be in the city guidelines and automatically taken care of.
Well, it's a good point, Denny. I actually think that, and we need to think how to phrase it, but something along the line of that question should be broached to the town lawyer as to how these things should best be dealt with.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you understood I was not against those guidelines. It's just this particular instance.
No, there's no problem at all with, we don't need to have all of our votes as unanimous. Yeah, thank you for the explanation. Any other, okay. Well, the last issue on the agenda is just a note that we send in one more letter of support for the museum's State Historical Fund application related to the CAR 211. Any other comments before we close the meeting? Okay, thank you all for your time. We'll see you at the next meeting. This meeting is closed at 10:05 a.m.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you all.